Undone, Incomplete Investigations. I'm Kathryn. Thank you so much for being here. We cover true crime. We've been very invested in the Lori Vallow Daybell case, and we will cover it until the end. This update is about the Dateline episode from May 1st, 2020 that was based on Lori Vallow Daybell. We'll also talk about a court date that happened the same day when she tried again, time number 3, to get her bail reduced. Please like, please subscribe, and please ring the bell for notifications when we go live or a new video is posted. Welcome to Left Undone, Incomplete Investigations. I'm Kathryn. Let's get into the Dateline episode. Colby is Lori's son. Colby is from Lori's second marriage, but Joe Ryan, who is Tylee's biological father, did legally adopt Colby. Colby did talk about in the Dateline interview that Joe Ryan was abusive to him. Colby even says that Joe Ryan was sexually abusive to him as well. We do know that these allegations were reported, but they were dismissed. So was this true or wasn't it? Annie Cushing, who is Joe Ryan's biological sister, did witness physical abuse to Colby, and she did testify for Lori against Joe. Annie says flat out she is about facts. And the facts of the matter are she could only testify on what she literally knew for a fact, which is she saw physical abuse. Annie and Joe were raised in foster care. And Annie goes on to say, back then, there was no support for kids in foster care. There was no therapy offered. It was a rough ride for them. Colby goes on to say that he was sexually assaulted by Joe. He said he was afraid to tell his mother because he knew it would basically devastate her. So he kept it from her for some time. Now, Annie Cushing, she posted this publicly on Facebook forum, and she does say that this was talked about in several of interviews, her interviews with Dr. Phil, Inside Edition, all the ones she did. They never chose to air this information, but she says it was talked about, and she did bring this up before in those interviews. I can't answer any questions about what he has said. I'd be speculating. I've been reached out to by multiple people about my thoughts on Colby. Now, this is Annie Cushing talking. Allegations of sexual abuse by my brother on the Dateline episode. So I'll leave them here. Now, she does say, warning, if you were a victim of sexual abuse, this post and the discussion around it could be triggering. These groups need to be a safe place. You know, she just wants everybody to know that this is a discussion, and be forewarned because can be it's a trigger warning. Bottom line, trigger warning. She says, I know multiple people have said this is the first time that they have heard of this allegation. She said, but I've addressed this issue in multiple interviews and pre-interviews, including Dateline 2020, Nancy Grace, and the Dr. Phil show. No one to date has chosen to include it. She says, I've also mentioned it in groups and various comments. She said, I always felt like I was walking a fine line between sharing my story, particularly while Joe and I were estranged, and crossing the line into telling Colby's. She says, as a victim of childhood sexual abuse, I'm not one to question victims. I'm sure there are people who would have thought my abusers were not capable of the evil they committed against me. I witnessed my brother physically abuse Colby. He He had his wrist bent back as he dragged him up the stairs. It was unnecessary force. And then I heard the belt. After dealing with a week of his outbursts, rages, and more subtly abusive behavior towards Colby, the incident was proverbial last straw in mine and Joe's relationship. My kids were so scared after one of his rages, I promised them I would never go see him again. So her kids were very scared of Uncle Joe. I also told Lori I worried about their safety and appealed to her not to let him handle discipline. He was a bachelor till the rapture kind of dude and was brand new to parenting. He was out of his depth. I left that home angry, worried, and regretful. I accepted his invitation to vacation together. I could have never imagined then the dramatic turn events that would happen 15 years later, when Lori would become the abuser. Lori asked me to testify against Joe. She said he was abusing Colby and Tylee, both physically and sexually. I forgot exactly what she said that made me think they could compel me to testify. Both attorneys seemed disappointed because I just recounted what I witnessed. I repeatedly said I couldn't speak to the sexual abuse allegations because I didn't witness any of that. Only my concern about the anger. I've addressed this before, so I won't belabor it, but I put a good deal of responsibility for Joe's anger and mental health issues on the foster care system. There were no counseling service offered to any of us at any time. We were left to fend for ourselves. So I understand his struggle, but personally I believe regardless of your past trauma, when you become a parent or a caregiver of children, you do whatever you need to do to get to a place where you're safe around them. Get therapy, take medication, whatever it takes. They lived in a near mansion. Remember, we showed you the pictures of where they lived in Texas. It definitely was like a McMansion, for sure. It's not like he didn't have the resources to get this help. Basically, she goes on to say that Joe dismissed this. He thought therapy was for weak people and he wasn't gonna go. So he didn't. He didn't go get help or therapy about being abusive at all. The only documentation I have about these allegations comes from someone who wanted to let me know Tylee didn't make an outcry shortly after I went public. I don't know what to make of it. At minimum, they offer an explanation why charges were brought against him, though Lori pursued it twice. You don't need to worry about feeling disloyal to me in any way by question. Okay, so she's just going on to say, like, it's okay if you question, on this post. And then she says, if my brother did sexually abuse Colby, I hope he gets the help he needs. Likewise, if Colby is lying, I hope he gets the help he needs. Regardless, there's no question Colby was repeatedly victimized in childhood. He grew up in an incredibly unstable environment. He has a long, hard road to recovery. Hopefully, he can break this vicious cycle of sociopathy with his own family. I wish him only the best. There is a supplement here from March 22nd, 2007. It says, Detective Skyrocky stated that the last case regarding Colby Ryan was declined prosecution due to inconsistencies in Colby's story. She stated that the new outcries are starting to come out now that Colby has been in therapy. She stated that the current case is still pending because she is trying to get an interview with Joseph Ryan and find out more details. She stated that since the last case was declined prosecution, she does not know what will happen regarding this case. And then this says April 23rd, 2007, Supervisor Carol Morin spoke with Detective Skyrocky by phone. She said nothing new has happened in the case and that Mr. Ryan is going to be completing a sex offender assessment. She said the district attorney's office will not take the case as is, so she is trying to gather as much information as possible. She said Colby was re-interviewed for this case and added more information to his outcry. She said it is suspect because he says that he did not mention the details before because he had a head injury. She asked Miss Vallow for Colby's mattress so it can be sent off for forensic testing. Miss Vallow and her husband have not followed through with it. She said Mr. Vallow was angry about the request of the mattress. She said there are big issues in this case because of the number of inconsistencies. This family has gone through a lot of crapola. Obviously, these kids have gone through a lot. And for this story to get where it is now, where Tylee is missing, it's just really unbelievably sad for that family. For Colby, I mean, if he had to live through that kind of abuse, obviously, even if the sexual abuse isn't true or never was proven, he was abused and he saw it. Colby was abused by Joseph Ryan. Joseph Ryan has quite a record of DUIs. He was definitely struggling. He was an alcoholic. He was on medication for alcoholism, and he has a record of DUIs. They say kids in the system can be really jacked up, and I believe it. You know, not every kid gets put into a loving foster home. There's plenty of kids that get put in crappy foster homes, have no love in their life. They've been tossed around. So obviously there were many issues with Joe Ryan. That's undisputed. Now remember Alec Cox's stand-up routine where he says that he shot his brother-in-law, Joe Ryan, because he was told that Joe Ryan was a pedophile, and he shot him with a stun gun. So that all probably came from all this. Alex did that. And we know that Alex will do anything for Lori. So fast forward to 2019, when Tylee's last place she is seen was at Yellowstone National Park with Lori and Uncle Alex and JJ. And Tylee was never seen again. So we know that Alex is perfectly capable of doing Lori favors. So then Colby goes on and is interviewed about Charles Vallow, and he said he came along, he took an interest in him and Tylee, and he was very much a showman. He dressed nice, he had money. They eventually adopted JJ, who we know is Kay and Larry's grandson. So Charles would be the great uncle. They adopted him. Everybody fell in love with JJ. Tylee took on a mother role, and Colby fell in love with him as well. And Colby was really happy having Charles as the stepdad. Before that, they were moving all the time, pick up and move, go, go, go. Life was not stable. He said finally, when he had Charles Vallow as his stepfather, they stayed in one place, there wasn't a bunch of court drama, and life felt normal. And in 2014, Colby was graduated from high school and they moved to Kauai. Colby felt like life was great. Charles really loved his mother and they were stable and happy. There is information Joe Ryan had gotten custody of Tylee and they picked up and booked it out of there. They were gone super fast in perfect Lori form. Within 5 days, they moved to Kauai and Joe Ryan couldn't have Tylee. Colby goes on to say he moved back to the mainland when he was 19. And when he decided to get married to Kelsey, Lori was not happy about it. Colby flat out says that Lori treated him like a boyfriend, was not supportive of the fact that he was getting married to Kelsey. Oh, and by the way, right now, there is a link below in the description for you to go on East Idaho News website and you can see the full Dateline. It will only be there temporarily, but it is available. Time moved on. They left the island, but Lori had her good friend April. And at one point she told April that Charles was not growing spiritually the way she needed, and she needed somebody that was more connected to her faith and her belief system, and they were having problems. But not only that, remember the purse video? Prior to that, Lori stole a lot of money from the business. She was a signer in the business, and she took a lot of money, thousands and thousands of dollars. People couldn't get paid. Payroll wasn't met. Not only that, he was getting sued by employees because he couldn't meet payroll. More, he didn't get back the money. Not only that, April goes on to say that Lori canceled his flight back to Arizona. He shows up at the airport and has to pay $600 for a ticket because Lori canceled his flight. And then when he got to the airport, after he flew in, his truck was gone. Lori took his truck. So that was the snowball that started the purse thing when Charles gets accused of stealing Lori's purse. And then the Dateline episode goes on and interviews people that know Chad who have actually heard about the zombie stuff before we heard about it. That he said that Tammy was supposed to die in a car accident and that she had been taken over by a zombie. Evil spirits took her over. This seems to be an excuse for everybody they get rid of. Evil spirits, zombies, come in and take them over. I guess this is just their way of justifying to get rid of people. But Lori and Chad definitely had a relationship far before Tammy died. But that led up to the day that Charles was shot by Uncle Alex. And she did tell Colby, Lori did tell Colby that Charles had a heart attack. Colby showed up and found out that Uncle Alex actually shot Charles. Colby says he was very upset about this. Then there's all the rumors about the pool party. We don't know. No one has come up and said, oh yeah, I was at that party. I mean, when kids play in a pool in the backyard, Tylee could have had a couple of friends there. JJ could have been playing. Lori could have Melanie Gibb over and niece Melanie, and they could be talking and, you know, turn on a little music and stuff, and it sounds like a raging pool party. So we don't know how big this party was. If it was actually a party, if it was just noise in the backyard. But it was super inappropriate because Charles was just shot there in that house that day. So obviously the neighbors were not happy about it. And the landlord was like, what? No. And there was a post on Facebook from the landlord. First of all, here is Lori's text goodbye to the landlord and what she says. This is Saturday, August 31st. She says, hi, Joe. Okay, we are just leaving the house now. I have Goodwill coming by on Monday to pick up a few things in the garage like bikes, but we are headed out of state. So I left the garage opener and mail key and front door key on the kitchen counter on the side. The third car garage is unlocked for access if needed. I really appreciate your support. We are trying to move on with life. It's not been easy, but I have to do what I can for the kids. Thanks for everything, and let me know if you need anything else. This landlord, Joe, made a post on Facebook talking about the day Charles was shot. Here's the post. I've known Lori and Charles since they moved to Chandler many years ago. We rented them the first home they lived in for about 5 years in Arizona before they moved to Kauai. I'd say we were good friends. My family visited them, Charles, Lori, Tylee, and JJ in Kauai. When they returned to Chandler, Charles and I had several conversations during Lori's disappearance in February of 2019. He came to my house and cried, telling me he's so sad that he can't believe she just abandoned JJ. A few text messages followed, and then they resurfaced as Charles tried to make the marriage work. We then rented Charles and Lori another home in June of 2019. This is where Charles was murdered on July 11th, 2019. Charles and I were texting the night before on July 10th at 7:49 p.m. and planning to meet in the morning to find him another place to live since things were not working out with Lori. That was the morning he was shot. Many very weird events followed. When the neighbors informed me police were at the house and yellow tape surrounded, I immediately text both Charles and Lori. Are you okay? No response until around 11 a.m. and Lori texted back. We are okay. I'll explain later, she said. She and Alex were taken to Chandler Police Department and questioned and released. That day, the neighbors reported a pool party at the residence. That same day that Charles was murdered, with loud music and lots of people swimming. Neighbors also reported Alex was staying at the house for several days following the shooting, even though he lived in the same area. I spoke with Lori several days following the shooting, and she never sounded shocked, sad, or heartbroken as you would think a bride would be watching her husband die. I asked her to move out, which she did August 31st. No communication as to where she was going. And he says, I really like Charles and Mrs. Smile and Louisiana twang accent. He was generous and a family man. Such a terrible loss. I'm so sorry he is gone. I wish I could have helped him more sooner. Rest in peace, my friend. So that was from the landlord describing the pool party that was allegedly thrown. And with Lori, I'm not surprised. Are you? I'm not surprised. Are you? I'm not surprised at all. Keith Morrison asked niece Melani, do you know that there are allegations that Uncle Alex is the one who shot at Brandon? Do you know that to be true? Melani says, I don't. I was confused for a while, and Brandon's details were really good, but Keith Morrison says, did you ever ask your Uncle Alex about this? If he shot at your husband, Brandon? And Melani says, oh, I did ask him, and we talked about it, and he made some jokes about it, but he thought, how weird would that be? How insane, basically, he says, in broad daylight, in a recognizable car? I mean, come on. So, apparently Melani believes this. Or was she the driver? There is suspicion that Melani was very much involved. She was in town at that point, and there's a lot of suspicion that she was involved in the shooting of Brandon. Maybe, maybe not. But it's out there. Then it moves on to talk about Tammy and Tammy dying. And 17 days before Tammy died, the malachite rings were purchased on Amazon under Charles Vallow's name and sent to Lori's house in Rexburg. And then niece Melani saw a Facebook post that Chad's wife had died, and she felt complete sadness for Chad because he adored his wife. Chad, who knew forever that Tammy was going to die somehow, but got a little bit more time, Chad was completely devastated. But Mr. Grieving husband wasn't grieving too much to have already purchased wedding bands and took off to Hawaii and married Lori Vallow 2 weeks later. And Melani seems to say, oh yeah, in our faith, that's what we do. We get married right away. Well, I took a poll, and LDS people that I know do not believe that that's appropriate. Yes, you may wind up getting married again because you want a family and it's important, but no. They go on and ask Ian, who is Melanie Boudreaux Pawlowski's new husband, that wore a wire for the FBI, and they asked him about it. He was not very forthcoming with them about it, but they did discuss the information that his ex-wife found on the computer about the multiple probations, the teleportation, the portals, the 144,000, people that become dark, people that become light, good, bad, evil, whatever. Ian put that all in writing, as well as the old original zombies that we talked about way back when Ian validated that whole thing. Now you have to remember there's two Melanies. There's Melanie Gibb, who was Lori's friend, who was the source for the original zombie information. And then there's Melanie Niece, who is Lori's niece, who is part of this. Melanie Gibb was part of the group, but she was like, nope, They asked her to lie about the whereabouts of the kids, and she said no. And she is cooperating, and her name has been brought up in court as one of the main witnesses, and she will be a good witness for this case. It also goes on to say in Ian's information that Brandon, Melanie's ex-husband, has become evil or dark, and that Alex may have to take a shot at Brandon. Do you think? Leave this in the comments below, but do you think there's enough circumstantial evidence or evidence here to charge them with murder? Because I do. I think it's really close. I think there's a lot of information, and not to mention the information that we don't even know, because there's stuff we don't know, right? So another thing that Melanie says is she moved to Rexburg to be by Aunt Lori, but then she also says that it was already planned for Lori to move to Hawaii. So which is it? They also said that Ian and Melanie met on a dating app for LDS people. And the other thing is, I don't believe a thing that comes out of Melanie niece's mouth. She seemed very uncomfortable. She seemed almost like they gave her something for her anxiety, that she took something because her pupils were super dilated and she couldn't answer things straight. It was more like, I don't want to say anything. I can't. I'm not allowed. I don't know. My Aunt Lori, I love her. I don't know. So most of us have been following this case super close, really close. We know every inch of it. We know more than a lot of people do because we've been following it from the very, very, very beginning. And I've invested more than 60 videos on it. So, but what we do know is that Lori's a liar. Melanie niece is lying through her teeth. Ian is scared. I mean, this is just my opinion, okay? But it's opinion of my subscribers too, because you guys make comments, and leave me comments if you think anything else. Let me know. Put it out there. But when is this? Even like Keith Morrison said, he's like, okay, when? Like when? And Melanie's like, I don't know. I mean, she's sweet. She's young. She's been brainwashed, obviously. But I don't know. The other thing I want to talk about is Lori's day in court. 2.5 hours of noise. Mark Means is in over his head. Even Crime Talk, Scott Reich, Crime Talk, flat out says, this dude's over his head. He is not a criminal lawyer. I don't know what he's doing there. He does a lot on the Lori Vallow case, and I subscribe to his channel because, he knows the law. And so he's actually one to watch, you guys, for the legal side of everything. And he's got a really funny, dry sense of humor. But Lori did not get her bail reduced. Thank you, Jesus. For real. I was like back and forth and then back and forth. And what is he saying? Oh my goodness, it was painful. It was painful. Mark Means, I don't know, does he have a reduced rate? Is he getting part of the book deal? Like she offered others, she offered Bondsman part of the book deal for down the road when she writes her book, even though we're not part of the 144,000. It was noted that someone heard Lori saying as she left, when she didn't get her bail reduced, that was a waste of money. That was a waste of money. What money, Lori? You don't have any money. If Chad has any money, it's because Tammy died and she got life insurance, and you're stealing Social Security money from your children, who you're not taking care of, Lori. You're not taking care of. I need to show you at the end the look that Lori gave Mark Means. That's great. What a waste of money. You took Chad's money. You're supposed to be building me a house with the money. You're on the dark list, Mr. Means. You've gone dark. And then let's listen to Mark Means outside of the courthouse after Lori's bond was denied, because he has a few things to say. With his handkerchief mask on, he has a few things to say. But they did flat out ask him, where are the kids? What does he say? Well, I'm not going to answer that question. And they say, how is Lori holding up in jail? And he's like, well, how would you hold up in jail? And then they ask him, and he's like, well, it's a financial crisis. So we'll show you that.
For July 9th and 10th.
And what are you expecting at that hearing?
Well, that's a question I think you'd have to ask Ron, right? They don't really have an obligation. Forgive me, I'm going to take this off. They don't really have much of an obligation to give us much as far as witnesses and whatnot before that hearing. It would be nice to know. I've been told somewhere between 12 and 13 witnesses will be called. I would imagine that 12 or 13 would come from the list that was released last week that had the 40-something witnesses listed on there. I'm sure you all have seen that. And what they had to say at this point in the discovery, we don't know. The defense is really at a disadvantage in the criminal process prior to the preliminary hearing.
How's Lori holding up in jail?
What do you expect, right? I mean, I appreciate the question, but how would you hold up in jail if you were there for 3 or 4 months? You know, she's dealing with it. You know, and we're dealing with it in preparation for her defense the best we can.
Why does she just say where the kids are?
Well, I'm not going to comment on anything such as that. But are there any other questions?
You mentioned that less than $500,000 they might be able to bond out. So it sounds like she's not bonding out.
Well, a couple things on that, right? Really more than a couple things. One, you have COVID-19 and the economic crisis that I've mentioned in the hearing today that probably most of you heard. That cannot be underestimated on what's happening. I think there were, in the last 6 weeks, 35 million people, give or take, that have filed for unemployment. You're affected here just like anywhere else, okay? Then you have on top of that, who isn't asking for assistance for the bond? It's Lori Daybell, right? Unfortunately, I kind of point the finger back at a lot of you. There's not a lot of goodwill for her as she's sitting in the Madison County Detention Center right now. So there are not a lot of people that are willing to step up and participate or put their name down on a cosign sheet to help acquire $1 million for the bond. I mean, it is not as easy as she pays 8 to 10% and she's out. Bondsmen are smart, right? They're not in it to lose money. They want up to $1 million in equity. Well, we're in Rexburg, Idaho. You tell me, what is the average home worth here in Rexburg, Idaho? $250,000. $1 million bond here is much more difficult than, say, you live in Los Angeles and your average home is $1.3 million, whatever the numbers are. Right? It's a little more difficult to come up with the equity and whatnot to make that happen. $500,000, I think, puts it in the more reasonable range of what the client could possibly do, but there's no guarantees that we can even do that.
Where's Chad?
Not here.
Chad did that to pretend.
No comment.
So you don't think that if she actually gave up the kids and did everything else, that she can get out of jail?
I can't comment on that, but I appreciate the question. Anything else?
Why are you representing Chad now? He's not facing any charges just yet.
Well, I mean, there's obviously complications when it comes to representing a married couple, right? But there's also complications and conflicts when it comes to you represent someone like Lori and you don't represent someone like Chad, right? So it's trading one set of problems for potential another set of problems.
You raised issues about being able to communicate confidentially with Lori. Do you feel like you can do that now?
I think I made that clear in the hearing, right? The judge got tired of hearing me repeat stuff, right? And it's difficult to breathe with a mask on your face.
You can watch the rest of that noise on East Idaho News. Thank you so much. Where are the children is the bottom line. We need to find out where the children are. Thank you for watching Left Undone, Incomplete Investigations. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. I'm Kathryn.